Assalamu alaikum. The most holy name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, we forever praise and thank him for the living Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and for his divine apostle in our midst, Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan Muhammad. Beloved brothers and sisters, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm in very good spirits. Last night I spoke at a dinner that was being given by a church in this community for their pastor. And I really feel good carrying out that which Minister Farrakhan is attempting and succeeding in doing today, and that is bringing black people together without regard to the labels that they carry or wear. And just the more of that we do, the better I know it makes me feel to be able to sit down in brotherhood and break bread with brothers and sisters and not worry about little fine theological points that we may disagree on. I mean, it's beautiful. It's something that is necessary for our total development. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we will be given by God, if we qualify, friendship in all walks of life, that's so heavy till it went right past us. We didn't even see what he was saying. He said friendship in all walks of life. You know? That doesn't leave out any. It means anywhere that your feet happen to tread while you are alive on this planet, that you go, that God would give you a mentality. Understand this. This is what's going to make you have friendship in all walks of life. When you walk among strangers, they view you and they read you, and then they respond to what they see and feel. And he is developing in us that type of mentality, that type of character, that type of bearing, that when we walk among the peoples of the earth, all the peoples of the earth, the immediate vibe that they get is, here comes a friend. That's what he's talking about. Even among the enemy, they will feel he's no threat. He's not here to harm me. We went into Wesleyan College, where we've been battling for months. It's been all in the papers, in all of the national newspapers, the local papers. About months ago, when Minister Farrakhan was invited to speak there, and the students wanted him there, and then the faculty wanted to cut off the money, and then some of the Jewish students wanted to protest, and all of that. And that thing has been battling back and forth for months, and he finally went there. And when we got there, we were in the last car, and we got away from the group. So the minister and everybody else, all 4 cars had arrived there. We came up after they were inside. We parked down the street, and they didn't know what was going on outside. We walked through a crowd. It was holding their own meeting outside on the steps of the building with microphones and everything. One old cracker had on his bad, pretty silk Ku Klux Klan robes, white, trimmed in green. You understand? That's right. And we strolled through them, and the police got upset. They got their guns ready. They started blocking off the Klansmen and a few other folks, and we didn't feel it. We walked right through. You know, never even looked at them, just went right on through the crowd. Then, after the police and the campus guards had worked with the FOI for a little while, and when we came up, they told us, you can't park here. Farrakhan's group's already, nobody else is coming, is going to be driving. It was okay, fine. We were down 2 blocks and parked in a parking lot and walked back. When the brothers started working with them, their attitude changed. And they were so cooperative, and finally, one of the policemen agreed to go and get our car and bring it in so it would be waiting at the door for us when we came out. A white policeman did that. See that? That's an education in itself. Now, there was a time when we went into a hostile situation like that, when it was over, the police be standing over here gritting their teeth, and the FBI be standing over here gritting their teeth. And all praise is due to Allah. We are very thankful that Minister Farrakhan is able to bring us up another notch. I mean, civilized. This is what you call civilization. You see Russia and the United States with missiles aimed at each other, Nuclear missiles aimed at each other? Yeah. When Schultz and the old boy over there meet, how they do? You know, sir? Civilized. Civilized people don't, every time they see each other, slap each other upside the head. They deal. They negotiate. You see, look, we both got a lot to lose. You hear the Honorable Minister Farrakhan talk sometime, and I see some of our own folks. He quiz, what? When he's telling white folks, look, we got too much to lose for you to be going in a nuclear war. Look what he doing. He getting with white folks? Yeah, we both got a lot to lose. That's how you deal with your enemy. Russia and the United States, neither one could win a nuclear war. That's why they got sense enough to say, look, let's talk this thing over. Can't neither one of us win, and both of us got a lot to lose. We need to talk. And this is what Minister Farrakhan is telling the government, and what he's going to be saying this coming Wednesday night in Washington, D.C. You better sit down. We all got too much to lose in this thing. Okay? That's what Moses told Pharaoh. Because contrary to our ignorant beliefs, because we don't half read the Bible, or anything else for that matter. That's right. We thought that when the plagues came, they didn't hit nobody but Pharaoh. Them was lies. When the water turned to blood, anybody got water got blood. When the light started biting, they did everything biteable. You understand? You hear what I'm saying? This is why a lot of us foolishly ask, and pray for the plagues to come on America. Listen. And we right here in it. That's right. That's like when we were on a slave ship. That's like being on a slave ship, chained down and hoping it sink. Hell, if it sink, we drown. Come on. In fact, we'd be the first to drown because we in chains. Everybody else might be able to swim. You hear what I'm saying? He's civilizing us. Okay? So I felt very, very good being among my sanctified brothers and sisters last night. And I thought about, and in fact, the minister there made reference to a scripture that I found in Zechariah, 14th chapter. In that day, there shall be one Lord, and his name one. Okay? Because up until this particular time, all of these folks with different gods going different directions and everything, but we are living in the day that Zechariah prophesied. That day that would come when there would be one Lord, one faith, and one baptism. Okay? And the preacher even got into that to let the people know he wasn't even talking about their physical baptism that they go through. He started talking about a spiritual baptism. Of course, it was no accident he was in the Nation of Islam for many years. So, in fact, he told them that his text was do for self. We must do for self. We know where that came from. We who have been claiming to be Muslims all of these years, if we look in our own book, the Holy Quran, in the 3rd chapter, in the 66th verse, it says, Abraham was not a Jew nor a Christian, but he was an upright man, a Muslim, and he was not one of the polytheists. All right, many times we used to use that. We used to use that and say, see, he's a Muslim, and all you Jews and all you Christians are wrong. But in the same 3rd chapter, just before that, in the 63rd and 64th verse, it says, all followers of the book, Bible, come to an equitable proposition between us and you that we will not serve any but Allah, God, and we shall not associate aught with him. All followers of the book, why do you dispute about Abraham when the Torah, the Old Testament, and the Gospel were not revealed till after him? Do you not then understand? Look at that very closely. It says that you should understand that there's no reason to argue about whether Abraham was the founder or a father or a member of the Jewish or the Christian religion, because both of their books were revealed after Abraham's time. Well then, let's be logical. Paul said, prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. If the organized Christian religion and the organized Jewish religion cannot claim Abraham, what about the organized Muslim religion? When was the Holy Quran revealed? You hear me talking to you? When the book says he was a Muslim, it doesn't mean a cult Muslim, a Sunni Muslim, or a Hanafi Muslim, or a black Muslim. It means a Muslim by definition of the fact that he was one who submitted his will entirely to the will of God. He didn't have no name for his religion. He didn't need none. Okay? Praise is due to Allah.
Yes, sir.
This is why Minister Farrakhan says we got to have the old-time religion. The religion whose age is not measured by the calendar,
Teach on that, brother.
measured by the longevity of its precepts and practices. Judah, that Judaism was named after, lived 3,500 years ago. Moses, who they claim was also the author of the same religion, although they didn't name it after him, they didn't name it after Judah, which is something strange, lived 4,000 years ago. Jesus, whom they named Christianity after, lived 2,000 years ago. Muhammad, who some of the ignorant Arabs call the holy founder of Islam, only lived 1,400 years ago. Then what was the religion of all of the prophets and the righteous before those men came on the scene? Don't tell me they taught the only religion that could, or the only teaching that could save anybody when there were people who saved whole nations before they were even born.
Yes, sir.
Moses, Noah, you know, how did they save people? And they never heard of Jesus, Jesus, Muhammad, none of them.
Think about it.
Judah, never heard of them. All right. So this is what Minister Farrakhan is saying. Let's get together. And he's not excluding white people even, and this may come as somewhat of a shock to some of us. It's not excluding white people. See, we know their nature, and we know what's going to happen to just about every one of them.
Yes, sir.
But we ain't supposed to make that judgment. This is where we made a mistake. We're trying to do God's work.
Yes, sir.
You're going to run around and try to judge white folk. We ain't got no right to judge white folk. Let's take the criterion that God uses and say any man or woman that can live up to this criterion, we accept them as our brother and sister and we love them. And anyone who can't, then we don't, because God gave us the criteria. God didn't say love nobody because they black and hate nobody because they white, did he?
No, sir.
He said love the righteous, fight the wicked.
Yes, sir.
See, the reason a lot of us didn't want to deal with that because we might fall in the wrong bag. Okay? But that's where it is. Mr. Farrakhan has made it plain publicly in the last week. Now, if a Jew, a Caucasian Gentile, lives the law of Moses and or the law of Jesus, lives in righteousness and does no harm to anyone but does good to everyone, we accept him as a brother and we got to love him because that's the law of God.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how many we going to find that can do that, but that's not our business.
Yes, sir.
See?
Yes, sir.
There's a difference in how you view a thing. We ain't saying nothing different. We're just doing it in a righteous, positive manner.
That's right, sir.
Just look, if you could, that's what God did. God sent white folks all the prophets. Do you know that?
Yes, sir.
You look at who the prophets went to. They went to white folks. He gave them every chance in the world.
Yes, sir.
Send them prophets.
Yes, sir.
Say, look, I'm not going to condemn you just because I know that you were created with an evil nature. You can't be just by reading a person's nature and talking about, hey, we're going to execute this. We're going to put this cat in the gas chamber because he's a potential murderer. I psychoanalyzed him and see that he got murder in his mind. You can't kill nobody for what's in their mind.
That's right, brother.
You got to wait till they at least attempt to do that.
That's right.
Then you can judge them. So how can you take a little white baby that's been born? Yes, I ain't gonna lie. Yes, he's born a devil.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Make that clear.
Yes, he's born unrighteous by nature.
Yes, sir.
But has he done anything?
That's right. That's the question.
Has he done anything? See, this will keep us from persecuting people as we have been persecuted. And this is another point that the minister makes so strong when he talks about when he condemns the Jews. He said, how can a people who have been persecuted all over the earth turn around and persecute the Palestinians the same way? Well, by the same token, you and I have been persecuted worse than the Jews. Then what do we look like once we get a little power? We're going to turn around and do the same thing or worse to somebody else that they did to us. Then that means we should have been persecuted because we are righteous ourselves. Now, brothers and sisters, with a man teaching what you just heard me repeat from him, why is it that you see so much venom spewed in the newspapers, the magazines, on radio and television against this man? Why would they condemn a man who's teaching that kind of universal brotherhood? He ain't teaching just brotherhood of you and me.
That's right.
He makes that very plain. That our problem is we are incapable of loving or even cooperating with even our own brothers, the Red Indians, until we first love and cooperate with each other. There's always a first. That's just like saying, well, this man is anti-roof because he won't just put a roof in there. How the hell you gonna put a roof up and ain't got no walls and no foundation? You ain't anti-roof, you're anti-stupidity. You know that there are logical steps. He's not against everybody in the world, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, getting together on a cooperative basis. But if you can't get together with black, which is you, how the hell you gonna get together with somebody at the other end of the spectrum? You don't have no basis to cooperate with something totally unlike you when you can't cooperate with your own flesh and blood. No. So why do they say such evil of this man? Why is this man such a threat to them when all he's saying is, let us all unite together on a base of righteousness, and we can forget color, hair texture, all of that. Culture, we forget all that. Let's stand on righteousness. Yes, sir. Close our eyes and don't even have to see what we look like. We just know how we act. We all act alike, we're all alike. And for that they vilify him. For that they want to crucify him verbally. That's right. Why? Ain't that strange? The more good a man does, the worse they hate him. We have to examine that. Yes, sir. What are they saying about him? They say he's a racist. That's right. Come on, brother. Anti-white. That's what he said. Yes, sir. He's an anti-Semite. Come on, brother. Well, now let's look at it. First of all, let's do what they call play devil's advocate. Suppose he is. Come on, brother. Suppose he were anti-white. Which he's not, but just suppose he would be. All white folks would have a perfect right to be mad at him. Isn't that right? If you know somebody don't like you, you ain't gonna be loving them except Negroes. But, you know, but they would have a perfect right not to like the man. They would. But if Minister Farrakhan is anti-white, what that nigga black is me doing right now? I don't dig that old Farrakhan. If I ain't white, what business is it of mine? If he's anti-Jew and I ain't Jewish, you don't see no Star David on me? Then what I care what he think about the Jews? All praise is due to Allah. You see how crazy we are, brothers and sisters? I mean crazy. I mean, some of y'all were here last week, I think, and we went into that a little bit. You understand, when we say crazy, we're not slandering nobody. We're crazy. That's right. Insanity is when you have lost touch with reality. And you have fashioned a fantasy world, and instead of you adjusting to the reality that you have to deal with day to day, you try to take the real world and shape it to fit your fantasy. And then that's when they put the straitjacket on you. What makes them say he's a racist? He's anti-Semitic. One statement. All that other stuff you hear them quoting him saying, that ain't what they mad about. They're mad about one statement and one statement alone. He says, we, the black people of America, are the choice of God today. Now that's what everybody's mad about. The Arabs are mad about it. The Africans don't dig it. Chinese ain't too happy with it. That's what he says. And that's what he proves. Now, a white man named Herbert W. Armstrong is on your radio, your television, produces 2 magazines, a whole library of books and booklets, pamphlets, got a whole 18-month Bible course. He's got a college out in a bad, big, beautiful college out in Pasadena, California, and one over in London. He's got a big, beautiful establishment down in South Africa. I mean, he's spreading the word all over the globe that the chosen people of God are the white Anglo-Saxon English-speaking people. And nobody's ever called him a racist. Is that weird? The Jews have made us to believe, as far back as any of us in here can remember, that the Jews are God's chosen people. And we never called them a racist, did we? So what are we saying? It's all right for God to choose the white Anglo-Saxon. And it's all right for God to choose the Jew. But something so inherently and intrinsically wrong with us, our very nature, that God would be crazy to choose us. Isn't that something? We're the only people on earth that think so little of ourselves that we think even God don't want us. Oh, praise is due to Allah. Let's examine God's choice. There was a time, and this is what these people do. They take the history and so forth, and then they twist it up a little bit and try to, what they want to do is stay in power. There was a time when the Europeans that Herbert Armstrong is talking about were God's choice to rule. They were. History proves that. They colonized the entire earth. They came out of Europe. They came out of them caves, brothers and sisters. As soon as they learned how to cook and put on clothes, they was terrible. You understand? And they went all over the earth, and wherever they went, they ruled. Biggest China is half the people in the world almost live in China, and they went over and took China, little bit of England, a postage stamp island, went and conquered China. Now, tell me God wasn't with them. I understand this. This is another thing we get all mixed up. If you deny, see, when the white folks said, yes, we were ruling by divine right, the European kingdoms are in power by divine right. They called it divine right of kings. Y'all studied that in history. And as we got out here and stood on the corners of Harlem and listened to the cats on the ladders and got all black, we wanted to deny that. You can't deny that. You can't deny that. If you deny that, if you say that those white folks came out and took over the world against God's will, you're saying white folks better than God. If you believe in God and the power of God, you know that the white folks could not have taken over unless God wanted them to take over. All right, let's look at this now. We got to grow up. We got to become adults and quit looking like children just because you don't like something. You know what? I used to hear Muslims say, you know, white folks are ignorant. And I look at them and say, if they so ignorant, how come they got all the jobs and all the money? I mean, just because you don't like a thing, don't mean that thing ain't intelligent. Because you don't like it don't mean it ain't got power. You don't like it, so it's going to be what you would like for it to be. No, that's crazy. You got to take it for what it is. Yes, sir. White folks were ordained by God to rule. Yes, sir. For a time. Okay? Yes, sir. Back during the Ming Dynasty, the Han Dynasty, and all those that China ruled the earth. Yes, sir. China was the meanest thing on earth. How? By God's permission. Yes, sir. When Marco Polo, right now, when you think of spaghetti, who you think about? The Italians, don't you? Italians had never seen no spaghetti till Marco Polo went to China and the Chinese over there making spaghetti. He brought it back and the Italians fell in love with it, now it's their national dish, but it came from China. See, you and I, we got all these mixed up. You know Chinese never heard of chop suey till they came to America? See, we got to get into reality. Got to look at the thing like it is. French frying was not invented by the French. It was a black man in the state of New York, which was now in New Amsterdam, who showed white folks how to deep fry potatoes. I mean, we just got to get into some reality. Yes, sir. We're not going to have a very involved lecture today. All I want to do, I want to make sure that Muslims, that the registered Muslims and the non-registered Muslims, that we all, you know, every now and then we have to come and just get some down to earth stuff, just make sure our feet are still on the ground, that we know where we're going. Okay? We ain't no way out sciencing and breaking down stars and atoms and stuff today. No. No. We better break down this ground under our feet and try to grow something out of it. And since the black studies have been on the scene, you know that at one time, Africa was God's choice. When Ghana and Songhai and Mali and Timbuktu were in their glory, and when the white folks from Greece, the way they built white civilization, where they got the knowledge to begin building what is now white Western civilization, the Greeks had to go into Egypt on the continent of Africa and do all their study. Yes, sir. You wouldn't have no geometry today if Euclid hadn't got it to you. And Euclid learned it from a man named Pythagoras, who learned it from Thales of Miletus, who went to Alexandria, Egypt, and brought it back to Greece. Okay? were God's chosen people. And nobody can deny that. At one point, God chose the Arabs. When he raised up Muhammad, he raised Muhammad up to put the Arabs in the rulership of the earth. Did they rule it?
Yes, sir.
I hope to tell you they did.
Yes, sir.
That Moorish concept, Moor means black. Any of y'all named Moore or Morris, that means black. You got a pretty good old slave name. Moor means black. And when you read in your books about the Moorish conquest of Europe, it's about the black conquest. That's when the Muslims went in and took over most of Europe, all the way up to Vienna, Austria. That's why, see, you wanted to claim kinship with some of them cats. That's why you see the Southern French, the Spaniards, the Italians looking so dark and greasy. Right. Because that's how they stopped them. Listen to me, black man. That's how Charles Martel stopped the Moorish conquest. If you read a good history book, they will tell you that what the white folks were doing was they were burning their fields, the scorched earth policy, as they called it. That's where it started. When they would have to retreat from a town because the Muslims were coming. I mean, the Muslims were coming mean. Muslims were coming mean in any force you ever heard of in your life because they didn't have nothing to do but win or die. In fact, some of you know this story. The Rock of Gibraltar was named Jebel el Tariq, rock in Arabic, the Rock of Tariq, after the man Tariq who led them in the conquest of Europe. When they got off the boats, they looked back, Tariq had set all the boats on fire, told them we ain't gonna need them. We either win or die, because we ain't going back, okay? Now, that's a fierce force. That's a lot of zeal to have to come up against. So, the Europeans didn't, they were just getting wiped out. All they were doing was running, but in their running, they were burning up all of the fields so that the Muslims wouldn't have nothing to eat, and they were taking all their jewelry and all. Charles Martel watched them. He said, no, these people have a strong belief in God. They have a religious zeal that you will never defeat. He says, don't burn up your crops. He said, leave your crops standing. Leave some of your riches there, and leave some of your women behind. And when they begin to get rich and greedy and get to live in luxurious life and get to land with these white women, he said they will begin to argue with each other about who is the boss. You hear that? And the reason we need to study that is not because it's a nice little fairy tale, it's because we better be careful today. Okay? That's why they look all mixed up. They got over there and they turned their woman loose on them, mixed them up, and the next thing you knew, the Muslims were being persecuted. They had what they call the Inquisition.
Yes, sir.
Every Muslim that they could catch, identified as Muslim, they cut their right hand off and their left leg off, or their right hand, left leg, right hand, and their right leg, one on the one side and one on the other, to let everybody mark. These are these fierce folks who came in here and whooped us. Now look what we're doing to them. They were God's choice, but they messed up. White girls got them away from God. All right. Now, after looking at all of that, we have to ask the question. If God chose the Europeans at one time, the Chinese at another time, Africans at another time, the Arabs at another time, he ain't gonna never choose us? If he don't, I don't want him. You hear me talking to? I can't use him. If he dig everybody but me, then I dig everybody but him. Now, I know white folks made us crazy, but sister, when you really stop and think about it, I know there's some of y'all that do this, but when you come in your right mind, you stop that foolishness of wanting somebody that don't want you, don't you? Yeah, I know a lot of y'all been into that bag. You too, brother. Man, bro, it ain't nothing. Why you good? But I love him, man. Hey, you grow out of that when you get intelligent, don't you? When you start learning and say first thing you say, well, I don't want nobody that don't want me. And that go for God too. Now you may think that's blasphemy, but that's for real. I don't want no God don't want me. What can I do with it? Somebody don't like me, well, I'll put you on the back. Man, what the hell with you? I'll go find me somebody else. You may say, well, you said he chose Africa, so that was us. That don't count. Because we ain't Africans. Okay, how many people tell you you're African or you're African American or you all that? You ain't none of that.
That's right.
We're different people.
Right.
Okay? God chose Europe to colonize the world. But then after Europe lost its power, who did God choose? America. They used to be Europeans. Now, if their descendants ruled, and then they came to a new land, and then they were chosen to rule, just because our descendants ruled, how does that mean we don't have a right to rule? We're talking equality now, brothers and sisters. That's right. Just as the Europeans had their divine right, don't forget that James Monroe established the doctrine of manifest destiny. When he wrote the Monroe Doctrine and took over all of South and Central America, he said, we're doing it because we have a manifest destiny to rule. Saying what? God has ordained it. And God had to ordain it. Had to ordain it. And you know he wasn't with them. All them Catholics in South America, and they couldn't keep America from taking it over. God had to be with America at that time. Now, as I told the folks at the church dinner last night, I love a song. There's one song in particular that the choirs sing in the churches when I go visit churches, which I do as often as I can, that I really love. They say, it is no secret what God can do. What he has done for others, he can do for you. Now, I dig that. Now, that's my kind of God. Now we found it. Okay? That's my kind of Lord. You do it for them, do it for me. They sing it and don't even understand it. That is saying to them the same thing. If God can lift up all these other people to rule, why not you? And if you don't believe that, then you doubt the power of God. It's a secret to you what God can do, because you don't believe that what he's done for others, he can do for you. You ain't broke the secret yet. Christians have a saying, and the minister took it as one of his texts as he traveled around the country. In Christ, all things are possible. Now, you know, either they are or they aren't. Why is it that you think that everything is so possible in Christ if it makes white folks successful? But when you look at our condition, if all things are possible in Christ, then you know that you and I can be lifted from the very bottom to the top. Didn't the book say that the bottom rail shall become the top? Yes, didn't it say that the tail will become the head? Ain't nobody never been behind us. We've always been the lowest on the totem pole, right? Doesn't it say the first shall be last and the last shall be first? We definitely last. Then the book is telling us we got to be first, otherwise the book is last. Not only can God do it, he got to do it because he said he's going to do it. Praise is due to Allah. The Jews are mad because the minister says we are God's chosen people and not them. All right. They talk about they established Israel because of the law of return. The law of return is very clear in the Bible. God made a covenant with Moses. The Jews had strayed from the way of God. God made a covenant. So you're going to be chased and be a vagabond in the earth. You're going to have to be scattered all over and be persecuted. But if you return to the law of Moses, if you return to the law that God gave to Moses, then I will return you to your land. That's a bargain. Did the Jews ever return to righteousness? Y'all live with them.
No, sir. No, sir. Come on.
They never did. Plus he said, if you return, if you make the spiritual return, I will send you one called Messiah to lead you on the physical return. Did the Messiah come get them?
No, sir.
They're not the people. He further said to Abraham that his people, who would be the last choice, would serve another nation in a strange land, a land that was not theirs, for 400 years. Did the Jews ever spend 400 years in bondage to anybody? You say, oh yeah, in Egypt with Moses. That ain't what the Jews said. In the 8th chapter of St. John, the 32nd verse, when Jesus said, you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free, the Jews said, how you say you're going to make us free? We have never been in bondage to any man. It's 2,000 years after Moses dead, and the Jews are declaring to the world they ain't never been in bondage. So if they ain't never were in bondage, and you don't know nobody after Jesus that was in bondage except us for 400 years, then who's the book talking about that would be God's last choice? I mean, the man is standing on solid ground, historically, spiritually, every way you can name. Politically, morally, because the Jews went in and robbed and stole and killed and chased people away from home. That ain't the way a righteous people get a promised land. Not stealing, don't mean they don't have to kill. But they don't unjustly go in and just take a people's land. The stone that the builders rejected, that's us. Now, the Jews have been God's choice, as we say, but they messed up. God told them, you do this, do that. Well, what happened? What about Europe? You know, does he just like to play chess? Does he just like to set people up and to make them great and then say, aha, now you feeling good? Bam, I'm knocking you down. That'd be a cruel and kind of crazy. You'd be kind of off. You know, folks who do that kind of stuff, they're kind of off. You know, like kids, they always talk about little boys, they start worrying about, they like to catch butterflies and stick pins in them and stuff. You know, just cruel acts for the sake of cruelty. You know, big game hunters who go out and shoot something they can't even eat just to shoot it. Why have all of these civilizations risen by the grace of God and then fallen by the command of God? Because whenever God lifts up a people, he places conditions on their rule. With power comes responsibility. And if you don't live up to your responsibility, you don't have the right to rule. And that's what has happened to all of them. When the Europeans were colonizing the earth, they did not rule the people with justice and equity. They robbed the people of all of the resources and got rich themselves and brutalized the people. America has done the same thing with us as well as their colonies. Puerto Rico, all them other little islands out there. They had Panama for a while. They had Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Grenada, which they just invaded. Yeah, they haven't served with justice. The Chinese had these 1,001 torture methods that they put on people and stuff. They weren't righteous. Don't care how powerful and how smart you are, if you're not righteous, your arm's too sharp to box with God. You understand? When the Holy Quran was revealed to Muhammad, you see in that revelation that God promised the Muslims that he would make them masters of the earth to see how they act. That's explicit in the Holy Quran. Allah tells them straight out, I will make you masters in the earth to see how you act. So he made them masters, saw how they acted, and that's why they over there now can't get together. They messed up. Today we are being tried. We ain't even in power yet. See, God's last choice is the best. Because once he puts his last choice in power, what makes us last is ain't nobody else going up because we ain't coming down. So that means that we have to be more qualified than anybody that has ever ruled because we're going to be the only ones that establish that kingdom that shall last forever. All right? So that means he can't treat us like he did the others. He can't put us in power and then let us have on-the-job training. We got to go through some stuff before we get in power. We got to be tested to see if we are worthy of assuming the seat. Since once we get on it, we ain't coming off. You know, when somebody get a no-cut contract, you got to make sure they mean. Yes, sir. Y'all know that, don't you? Y'all see them baseball and football players get them no-cut contract? And you know they bad. Because the rest of them get them contracts that if you don't produce, we can let you go. They got to know this cat going to produce if they going to give him a no-cut contract. He don't have to worry about getting fired. I mean, they got to weigh him and make sure he can cut the mustard. Well, it's the same way. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that this is why God gave white folks on a likeness and great wealth and riches. Why? To try us. Number one, it is a law of nature that unlike attracts. You know that. That's why you got magnets. That's why all of this technology, you got all these different things. This tape recorder over here works on the different poles. Unlike attracts. So when the white man was created, he was created unlike because he would be a great trial for us because we automatically would be attracted to them and they to us. And gave them great wealth and riches. You say, well, how does that try us? How many black people, when we were back teaching, just the raw teaching without any explanation of how we're going to get there, about having our own nation, separate territories set up that we own and govern. That's the first thing come out of most black folks' mouth. Yeah, man, but I mean, we're going to leave all this stuff here the white folks got. I mean, we got to start all over again? Got to get out in the wilderness and start, we leave these bad TV sets and air conditioners and these Cadillacs, man. That's the first thing hit their mind, which is natural. But that's their trial. See how much they're in love with that. Because actually, we don't have to leave none of that. Ain't going to leave none of that. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we would be crazy. We would have wasted time suffering all these years under white folks if we didn't get something from them and learn something from them. White folks went through this country cutting down timber, building up this country. They have a magnificent civilization here. What in the world we look like? A man in this, go back in the wood, cut down some more trees, what they call reinventing the wheel when the wheel's already there. No, we want some of this. All right. But it tries us. This why there's a prayer in the Bible, in the Proverbs, the 30th chapter, 8th and 9th verse. There's a prayer in there where the writer of Proverbs prays to God not to either give him poverty or riches. He said, don't give us poverty or riches. And look at that. That's a strange prayer, isn't it? See, no, I just want to be so-so. I want to be right in the middle. I don't want you to make me rich, and Lord, don't let me be poor. Why? He explains it in the prayer. Because he says that if you give me too many riches, Lord, I might deny you. I get so comfortable in it, I feel like I did it all myself and forget where my blessings came from. He said, if you let me get too poor, I might steal. That's real, ain't it? Yes, sir. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in training his ministers, gave us a lesson where it tells us the 3 things that are most dangerous to a minister and the 3 things most likely to destroy him. And he lists them. The beauty of women, lust for wealth, and poverty. Any one of those 3 or any combination of them will wipe you out. Okay? So now, brothers and sisters, we must be rulers. To be rulers, we're the first ones who have to get the qualifications before we rule. Okay? What qualifies us? How do we know how to get qualified? It's easy. Easy? Yes, it's easy. I didn't say it's easy to do. I say it's easy to know. Now, I don't never promise you it's easy to do. If it was easy to do, it wouldn't be worth nothing. But it's easy to know. What makes it so easy? Because you got a role model. Okay? This is why God always puts a role model in front of the people he wants to raise up. So they have no excuse. Well, Lord, I didn't know what to do. Did you watch my man? Did you check him out? I didn't tell you what to do. I showed you what to do because I put one among you who was doing it all. You do what portion of it? Because a person visiting and decides that they want to be a part of us, doesn't want to give up meat and so on. That's fine. We ain't got no problem with that. But one of the things that makes them even be interested in becoming a part of us is the person who first invited them and brought them here. Yes, sir. Okay? And they were impressed by something. Every salesman will tell you, you sell yourself. Then you can sell the product. But if they didn't deal you, you couldn't have got them to come down here. So they were looking at you. Now you do the nation a great disservice if you disillusion that person, because they came as your guests because they believe that you honestly believe that which you say you will follow. And if they hear me stand up here and talk about the meat, and they hear tapes of Minister Farrakhan talking about the meat, and then they see you gonna pick up a corned beef sandwich, then they know you jiving. Let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. If you are laying down sleep, and somebody come and shake and wake you up, when you open your eyes, who's the first person you see? The one that woke you up, right? You do the nation a disservice. If you're not going to live the life, I'd rather for you don't even tell nobody to come here with you. Because you do the nation a disservice because they find you will being hypocritical. I ain't trying to overthrow the nation. Look up the word hypocrite. Read the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's definition as it came from the Oxford English Dictionary. One who speaks with his mouth that which is not in his heart. You Farrakhan and ain't living Farrakhan, you're a hypocrite. I hate to put it, and we ain't gonna get rid of you because you're a hypocrite. All of us been hypocrites, and most, I guess we still got a little hypocrisy. We just got to overcome it. I'm not saying that to drive you away. I'm saying that to point it out to you so you can work on it. I got some things to work on. You got some things. Let's work on them. Let's don't sweep them under the rug and act like they don't exist because they ain't going to do nothing but get bigger and destroy us all. No, let's face them up. Let's look at it straight up. If you got that steak laying on tonight, and if you eat that steak, just know what you're doing. And maybe after you eat it and get indigestion, you think about what we're saying. And maybe you'll go into the old good book and kind of check out what I've been telling you about that. And, you know, the part about where Paul was saying, well, you know, if you know you can eat. I mean, this is exactly, this is in the book, in the New Testament. Paul's telling somebody they're arguing about meat, of all things. Telling them, well, you know, if you know you can eat meat and it's all right, now check this out. It ain't going to bother you. If you want to eat meat and you know it's all right and so on and so on, go ahead and eat your meat. But if you know that your meat will cause your brother to stumble, then don't eat the meat. Do you love your brother more than you love the meat, or you love the meat more than you love your brother? All praise is due to Allah. You understand me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to save some lives. And that thing in Moses is not playing. I mean, God physically killed them not about the meat, but because of what that meat, that weakness to the meat was a sign of. It's a sign of abject weakness. All right. Now we got to be strong. Brothers?
Yes, sir.
We got a job to do. You may remember, some of you were here, some of you may not have been. Taught a lecture recently called The Number One Problem.
Yes, sir. Yes.
We're going to deal with number 2 today. Now, this book, given to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad by God in person. Okay? He didn't just talk like he did to Muhammad and let Muhammad say it and then somebody else write it down. He handed it to him in his hand. He said, now, there are 34 problems in this book. When you have solved all of them, your job will be done. So that's all we have to do. Solve these 34 problems in these books. And I've known people throughout the years who have spent nights up with pencils and paper and slide rules and later on calculators. That ain't gonna get it. That ain't the kind of problem it is. You know? Let me just briefly remind you, problem number 1 dealt with the uncle of Mr. W.D. Farad, who lived in the wilderness of North America, and his condition. The second problem, that's the number 1 problem, and we dealt through it. We're not going to go through it. If you were not here or something, you can get the tape. But then the second problem that he says has to be solved, he says the wife of Mr. W.D. Farad's uncle in the wilderness of North America weighs other than herself. Therefore, she has rheumatism, headaches, pains in all joints, and cannot walk up to the store. Now, the book is a spiritual book. And you and I have always taken that physically and saying that, you know, Got to get all the fat sisters to reduce. Get rid of the arthritis and all that. All that's good and all that's true. That ain't what the book's talking about. Listen at the language. Look at the language that the God uses. Now, you may say, hey, he talks funny. He can't talk funny. He knows all the languages. Some of you wise scientists may say, well, I don't know. I remember when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that he spoke 16 languages. How many languages you think there are? Most of the things you think are languages are nothing but dialects of other language. Hebrew is not a language. Hebrew is nothing but an Arabic dialect. That's why when I first came in the nation, I wanted to take Arabic. I went to the Berlitz School, which is your biggest language school in the world. I went to the Berlitz School and signed up, and the man that was going to be my instructor was the chairman of the Hebrew department at UCLA. Because he knew Arabic, therefore he could teach Hebrew. It's nothing but a dialect, and Aramaic is a dialect. You know, you learn one Romance language, and you can speak and converse with people that speak them all. If you speak Italian, you can speak French, you can speak Spanish, you can speak it all. Portuguese, because they are dialects of one language. They're not the 16. When you say God speaks 16 languages, he speaks every language known. Because he speaks the languages and all the dialects. All right. So, when he speaks, why didn't he say that the wife of Mr. W.D. Farrar's uncle in the wilderness, North America, is overweight? She's too fat. She's obese. Why didn't he say that? Because that ain't what he meant. He said exactly what he meant. He said that she weighs other than herself. Other than yourself is somebody else's self, ain't it?
Yes, sir.
Listen to me carefully. She weighs other than herself, which means she is carrying some weight that somebody else is supposed to be carrying. You know, chalk up here, but I wanted to. Okay? The next word is therefore. And that's the word I wanted to deal with. Therefore. But you're familiar with it. You know that the word therefore, between two statements, means that because of the first statement, the second statement is so. That the second statement came about as a result of the first statement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the first statement is that she weighs other than herself, therefore she has rheumatism, headaches, pains, and all her joints, and cannot walk up to the store. Now look at that. Brothers and sisters, the weight that the black woman, you know, that really, when I went to this church function last night, there were about 150 people there. There weren't 25 men in the whole crowd. And I mentioned it to Brother Ronnie, who accompanied me. I said, you know, look at the few men that are in the church. I said, and then, I said, some of these are probably husbands who don't go to church with them, they just came out to the function. Sure enough, at the end of the meeting, one of the elders approached me and said, you know, it's been a long time since we've had this many men around. 25 out of 150, all the rest women. You know, the black woman, by and large, is without a man. Even when she's with a man, she's without a man. You know what I'm saying? And look, let me show you something. Now, I'm not condemning the black man. I'm going to show you what white folks have done to us. Every year when they put out the comparative wages, comparative earnings, the highest wage earner in America is the white man. The second highest is the white woman. The third is the black woman. And the last is the black man. She's carrying some weight that doesn't belong to her.
Yes, sir.
And the white man is not going to change it. He knew what he was doing when he set it up that way. You talk about, well, Liz, I don't want to have a conference with you. My wife won't submit to you. How can she? She probably making more money than you. He knew what he was talking about. You got to pay the cost to be the boss. Okay? Understand, that's a realism. You read the true history of Jesus, And the reason that Mary and Joseph were not allowed to marry, her father would not let him marry her, because in those days in the Muslim world, you did not let your daughter marry any man that could not take care of them better than you did, and her father had money and he didn't. That's intelligent. That's wise. But we were put in a case where we couldn't do nothing about it. We can now, though. See, we couldn't prevent it, but we can sure cure it. And the doctor's on the scene. Now, because of this imbalance, she carrying all the weight, we get disgusted because we can't control her. We whoop her. And we got any sense, once we do that, we leave town. Yeah, that's the truth, brother. Some of y'all are crazy. I mean, I just have to tell you that. Sick. Any man. Now, you know what they say, hell has no fury like a woman scorned. You know they ain't got no fury like a woman whooped. Now, look at this. You got to be a stomp down, hope to die nut. As vindictive as a woman is. You gonna thump all around, go upside her head, and go to bed and go to sleep. You got to be a fool. Every time I hear that, I look at the brother and shudder and say, you don't know what he's playing with. Yo, that's crazy, man. My wife, when she gets back down, she will tell you, I told her these exact words. I said, baby, if I ever hit you, when you fall on the corner, you're going to fall on my suitcase. It's already back. Not the kid. I had an old friend of mine, we were discussing that one day. He said, yeah. He said, bro, you know what? He said, you got the right idea. I'm going to be careful. I ain't never hit my wife. He said, because it'd be a strange feeling to wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, she frying bacon, and I know she ain't hungry. Yeah. So now this causes a lot of disruption among black men and black women.
Yes, sir.
It seems like it's everything else. Y'all get on each other's nerves for all the other reasons, but that's the real reason.
Yes, sir.
Is that your nature tells you you are supposed to be the provider and protector and therefore the ruler.
Yes, sir.
And her nature tells her the same thing. And yet, she cannot submit to you, and she should not submit to you if you can't do your job. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, because of that, we have to take our hats off, honor these sisters who come into the Nation of Islam and try to hang on until Minister Farrakhan can get their man squared away. We have to, really, sister, it's really something, because you recognize the value of it once he gets straightened out. Okay? You're wise enough to be able to see that far down the line, and you put up with our foolishness until we can get straight. And I think we owe you a great debt of gratitude. Okay? Just hanging on. But really, when we begin to wake up for real and look at you, sometimes we say, good God, sometimes we are honest enough to say it to you. Damn, baby, how'd you put up with me all that time? You know? That's right. We'll say it if you're honest. Now, unless we change that condition, okay, she can't develop. If we don't develop, she can't develop. That's what it means. She cannot walk up to the store. She can't walk up to the store. Up. Notice it's up. It's not down. It means she's going to a higher level to go to the store. What is the store? Store is someplace that everything that you need is there. A store is where your provisions, where your necessities of life are kept. But because of this condition, she cannot walk up to the next level to get the things that she needs to make her life what it should be. If she can't walk to the store, when a person can't walk, that means they got to have a vehicle. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
She can't walk to the store, then you got to get something that will carry her to the store.
Yes, sir.
That's right. There you go, brother. Taxi. That's us. That's right. We have got to formulate the type of vehicle that will enable her to take her rightful place. Now, you hear Minister Farrakhan letting the sisters go for what they know, that's wisdom. Because if, and this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did, in the first stage of our development, he had to pull the sisters back in order to give the brothers a chance to get our sea legs, get our confidence. Let us go out front. Minister Farrakhan is taking us to another stage of development now. We're not going to hold the sisters back. Because see, you know, the sisters would have outstripped us so bad, we would have got discouraged. You know how, just like Hegler did Hearns? Yeah, that was a psychological thing. He was whipping him so bad, he just discouraged him. Man, just, yeah, I'll take this. You know, and you see runners do it. I even see horses. If you ever watch horse races, you can see horses break other horses' spirit. Just by leaving them in the dust so hard, you see the horse just, jockey be just beating the horse, just slow on down. Give it up. Okay? And that's what would have happened to us. This is what Minister Farrakhan is teaching us. That is what would have happened to the men in the Nation of Islam if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had given the sisters free reign. They would have outshone us so badly. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it himself, that we would have just given up, laid down, and forgot about it. And then we've been just like the church, temple full of women and no men. Okay? So, Minister Farrakhan had to bring us to a stage so that now he says, sister, go for it. And then the brothers have the challenge of not pulling them back, but catching up and passing them. Okay? We got to do it. Well, how can we do it? Well, white man ain't gonna give me no better job. He's still gonna give her all the best job, because that's his plan. He knows just what I'm teaching you now, it might be news to you, it ain't no news to him. That's why he laid out this plan. Notice he ain't never let his woman get over him with no money. He know what he's doing. Oh, this man is shrewd. So anytime, I don't care how he changes it around, your woman is always gonna have greater earning power than you in his society. Then what does that tell you? You've got to make your own economy. The only way we're going to ever be able to solve that problem and take the weight off her that she should not be carried is that we have got to set up our own vehicle to carry her to the here now. Not the hereafter, to the here now. As the power program goes, and brothers and sisters, it's a monster. You and I are going to be surprised at the depth and the breadth of this program and what it's going to do. I mean, it is mean. I mean, it's going to do the thing. Economically, this is the answer. Right. The whole economic plank of the Muslim program is going to come straight out of this power thing. That's right. This that I'm teaching you today, the solution is right there. That we will begin to formulate our own economy. And it won't deprive the sisters. If a sister making $300 a week, we're not saying, here, now see, we set up our own economy. We'll cut her down to 150, see, and then I'm the breadwinner. No. We pay her 500 and we make 1,000.
Yes, sir. That's right.
See that? That's what I'm talking about. Let them go for what they know and then catch up and pass them.
Yes, sir.
And not pay it because we brothers, pay it because we earn it. She do $500 worth of work, we do $1,000 worth. Then she look at us and say, that's my man. She be bragging instead of saying, well, but I love him. I mean, he gonna be all right. When the minister get through with him, man, no, you be surprised how much these sisters have to apologize for us, have to explain us. And I'm telling you the truth. That's the absolute truth. I know it. Yeah, I don't make no bones about it. Yeah, baby, stand up for me. I'm gonna be all right. Yeah. So we can't hang in his stuff and ever be respected, not even by our own woman. You know, bees are respected, not just because they can sting, although that helps. But you know, you've probably had maple syrup, sorghum molasses. You've been to the pancake house eating strawberry syrup and blueberry syrup. Now, if you eat it and you don't know who made it, you have to look on the label to see who made it, don't you? When you taste that honey, you don't even have to look at the label. You know who made that, don't you? Yes, see, a bee can justify its existence because I don't care how many flavors, you can even make imitation honey flavor, but you can't make honey because can't nobody do that but the bee. And that's why the bee is a valuable insect all over the earth, Because everybody has to bow to the bee. So you see that? Only one can make that honey, boy. We got Daclon, Arlon, Nylon. Okay, nothing but a little worm makes silk. They can look at DuPont can go in their laboratories and stay there a million years. They'll never make one thread of silk. Take that little worm and feed him a mulberry leaf and he come out the other end as a silk thread. I ain't no complicated machinery, nothing. Can't just eat and do what comes naturally, and then you got silk. Okay? Now, white folks have taught us, but you see, you have to be an individual. See, you as an individual, and we come out here and go, oh yes, well, I think that Farrakhan is doing a pretty good job for the masses, but I, as an individual, you don't know no individual bees. Now, you ever heard of Joe Bee or Paul Silkworm or something? But just the fact that you one of them, everybody steps ahead. That's one of them bad bees. Yes, sir. Say one of them bad sons of bees or whatever. But you've got to be unique. You've got to develop. See, when we develop our economy, develop our government, develop our theology, it's ours. And it's not like anybody else's. And anybody that runs into it will recognize it immediately. You blindfolded, you taste honey, you know it. Right. You feel silk, you know that ain't nylon. That's right. You know that's the real thing. Right? Praise is due to Allah. Now, what will equip us for that? We have to be re-educated. You may say, you mean to tell me I spent 12 years in college for nothing? No, not for nothing. For good. If you use it for good, you know what you use it for. If you don't have the mentality to use it right, then yeah, you did it for nothing. If you did it just to be able to buy a condo and a Jaguar, yeah, you did it for nothing. It means that you didn't get a good education. Well, I went to Swarthmore, I went to Harvard. What do you mean I didn't get a good education? I've got my degree, so what? I can see you sitting up with an empty plate. Just because you just finished a meal don't mean it was a good meal. It just means you're through with it. You ate it all, but that don't mean it tasted good or that it feels good or that it's healthy for you. All right? Just because you finished school, quote, doesn't mean you got a good education, as you call it. Also, brothers and sisters, let me conclude with this, too. A lot of times we think the only place that you can get the necessary knowledge is in school. But as Brother Kevin pointed out earlier, school don't do it all. The school does some of it. We need doctors, and you got to go to school for that. We need engineers, and you got to go to school for that. In fact, this problem book dotes on engineering as being the number one thing that must be studied. This book. That's one of the problems that must be solved. We must have engineers, we must have scientists, we must have mathematicians. It's all listed in here, and it tells you what percentage of our folks are going to need it in order for us to build a successful nation. And the number one is engineering. And we're not knocking school. No, we're knocking what you do with it after you get it. That's what we're knocking. And that takes another mentality. Also, those of you who haven't been to college, or if you have been to college and you're working on a job, there are many of us who go to work, been working someplace 15 years, and can do what we are hired to do. But if there's a breakdown in another department, and they say, we want you to go over there and do that, you're lost. That's crazy. Ain't no way in the world I'm going to work nowhere and don't be teaching everything. Man, I want to learn it all. Because the day may come when I want to come out there and build the same thing for the nation. For my nation. Okay? So I'm watching it, and if I'm like, hey, man, that's sure okay. Tell white folks, you want to learn something, you want white folks to teach you anything they know, tell them, man, you are the baddest I ever seen it. Good God. I don't see how you do that. I don't believe I can ever do it. Oh, I can show y'all. They know, I know I can't learn. Man, I'm too dumb to learn that. You got to be a genius. No, you ain't. Let me show you. And you look at it, you understand? They, somebody gets so spooky with me. I'm not going up to the devil and humble myself. You walk away with what he got, you ain't too humble, man. You walk away with what he got, and you don't know how much money and how much time he spent to get it, and you just feel that he gave it to you. Who's wise and who's the fool then? See? You ain't wise because you can I'm not going. He can't tell me. He can't. No, he can't tell you because you're stupid. Man, and conquered the whole earth. He can tell me a whole lot, and I will listen. You can believe. He don't have to be whatever the year button. He be any white folks. When he speaks, I listen because I know he knows something because he's on top. Okay? Shut yourself up now. That devil can't tell me nothing. He can tell me a whole lot. Do you know, brothers and sisters? I mentioned Herbert Armstrong today. I've got a lot of his booklets. I get both his magazines every month. I study a lot of his stuff. You know how the first time I ever learned of the existence of Herbert W. Armstrong? I was reading the Pittsburgh Courier, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad put his name in there and told what time he came on the radio. Because he listened to him. You hear what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Here's a man taught by God listening to the devil. Wouldn't be doing it if God hadn't taught him that, would he? Thank God gave him a list of 104 books to go and read, most of them written by white folks. He went in the Congressional Library and read all 104 of them, and most of them were written by white folks. But God said you need to read these in order to raise up your people. The white folks got knowledge that will raise black folks into rulership. They don't want to give it up, and if they know what they're doing, they won't give it up. But you can get it if you're wise as the serpent and humble as the dove. Brothers and sisters, thank you very much for your attention. I'm very happy. And I want to say to you, as I was saying to someone yesterday, you know, when I first went to Los Angeles, I fell in love with the city. And when I left Los Angeles, I've never been homesick for any place. That's the truth. I moved from St. Louis to Los Angeles. I didn't get homesick for St. Louis. I moved from Los Angeles to Atlanta. I never got homesick for Los Angeles. But I loved Los Angeles. I fell in love with the city. But once I left it, I still love it. It's nice, you know. But I'm not homesick. Never got homesick for it. I stayed in Atlanta 18 years. Never got homesick. But I never fell in love with Atlanta. So I'm in love with New York. This is the first city. I've traveled extensively. It's the only city outside of Los Angeles I have ever fallen in love with. But I'm truly in love with this city. I'm in love with all of you. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum. Let's get me to stop doing